Okay, so it'll probably be actually going to give this a minute or two. We can just sit here and chat, and someone will watch this back later on YouTube as well. But
Yes.
StreamYard, which is the platform I'm using to do this live stream, has this habit lately of flaking out a bit with its communication to YouTube. The worst one was like 2.5, 3 minutes of me thinking I was live and no one could actually see it on YouTube. But
That's
later
fun.
on, when the video rendered, that first 2.5 minutes was all there.
Oh, right.
It
Oh,
just,
it's
it
very,
just,
very weird.
yeah, it just took 2.5, 3 minutes to actually kick in with a live stream. There you go. Fox of Fate
Oh, I
confirming.
see
Can you
someone.
see and hear
Yes.
us? Yes.
Hello,
All
Fox.
right. So yes, we're just doing our warm up because this is going to be recorded for the podcast. Which, if you haven't gone and like subscribed and Apple Podcasts to the Angry Aussie podcast and like give it us 5 stars, you should.
Because we're
And
awesome.
yes, yes, and we're going to do this. And of course, because we're live, there'll be some people. But again, as opposed to my normal live streams where I directly interact with the chat, we won't necessarily be doing that. But if someone brings up something that respond to, we'll do that. But I won't be doing the usual "Hi, how are you" type things because it won't make any sense on a podcast.
No, it
Mind you,
won't.
you get some weird fucking podcasts. Whereas like these people are clearly stoned out of their gourds, and if you're not in all the in jokes, none of it makes sense.
Yeah, that's like my life, I think. I am like a permanent in joke that nobody else seems to get. I try.
Oh, this is an interesting thing in a live stream. Fox of Fate recommended a sexologist, and I looked up her channel, and she looks good. The only thing that occurs to me is she seems to have a pretty big channel, and I don't know what the hell she'd want to do with me. I mean,
Who
I could
who
use
are you
Eva.
talking about?
What? Yes, Fox. What was the channel? You told me it was Dirty Times or whatever. I don't. Her channel seems quite good, but
Yeah,
I just had the suspicion that she'd be too big to want to bother with the likes of me.
I know. That's the story of my life a lot of the time.
Oh, I think she'd be more likely to want to deal with you. I'll use you as a bargaining chip. Like, no,
I
no, no. Eva's written this book,
don't
writes this
hold as
column.
much
She's
stock as
cool.
people seem to think I do. I don't know. It's funny.
Mm,
Maybe it's just my imposter syndrome kicking in, but I don't know how much weight I hold in that area. Oh, Sexplanations.
that
I know who you mean. Yeah, they're very good. Yeah, she's yeah, whether she'd be interested in coming onto our little moment, I don't know, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think that's the big thing, the degree to which she'd have any interest in coming. Definitely, she'd be awesome. Hi, PBR. Okay, we're just warming up so we can get in the mood. And as I've said in the title for this one, I gave a teaser last week and said you were going to be on it.
I saw that on it came up in my YouTube subscriptions, talking anal with Eva, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't there for that one. we had
Yeah.
we had a bit of a stuff up with times and
Yes.
technology as we do, and then today we almost had a stuff up with times because daylight savings has kicked in
Yes.
in the rest of Australia pretty much, but not up here in Queensland. And so we were going to record at 1 o'clock, and I'm like, yeah, cool, 1 o'clock's fine. And then realised at about 10 to 12 midday my time that was actually probably the time that you'd suggested, and then went, really not ready. But it's stuff that, it's funny, my phone has Queensland time on it and didn't change at all, whereas my husband, his phone changed and he got up really early this morning. Like, he set his alarm for 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock to go for a ride. He's a mountain biker and he goes just stupid early, rides out in the bush. And his alarm went off and he got up and it was like 4:30 or whatever. And he's pottering around the kitchen and looks at the microwave clock and it's 3:30. And he realized that his clock had ticked over for some reason to daylight savings time, whereas the rest of the house clocks obviously hadn't. And so, yeah, he it serves him right for getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning anyway, I reckon.
Yeah. What's the difference between 3 and 4 o'clock? They're the same as
No,
far as I'm
there is
concerned.
none. The only real times I see 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning is if I have not actually yet gone to sleep at those
Yes.
times. It's very
Yes.
rare I will, unless there's something, I've got to catch a flight or something. It's very rare that I will set an alarm for anything earlier than time I literally have to get up for work. And these days I work really early anyway. I'm at work at 7 o'clock in the morning, so that sucks. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on.
Literally going to say the same thing. I'd only have an alarm that early if I was going on a flight or something. But
Yeah.
it's the idea of just, it's a voluntary get out and do some weird physical activity. No, that's not me.
Well, see, I was doing that actually. I had a really cool boot camp trainer down on the beach, sort of 3 mornings a week, and I'd get up at 5 and go down and work out for an hour on the beach at sort of 6 o'clock in the morning, and I loved it. I mean, I hated it, but I loved it, like as you do. But then because of my work shifts changing and me having to be at work at 7, and this class doesn't finish until 7, I had to give it up, and now I don't have anything. So I sort of I don't do any kind of physical activity these days at all, which sucks because I'm not a night person. I won't go to the gym after work, but I will go before. And now there's nothing, and I'm not getting up super. I'm not doing a 4 o'clock class. I can get fucked. Anyway.
Oh dear. I just realised you've momentarily frozen twice for me, at least, only for a moment. But I just realised. I can connect. I'm going to connect before we go any further. I'm going to go get a cable to connect this laptop because the Wi-Fi can be a bit of a thing. But look, I can put you in control. Look, it's all you.
Gosh.
No?
Look, I had to cover the mattress in the back because usually there's the spare mattress that sits up, and it sits up quite strong, and it's got a sheet on it, but it fell down and it's gone all floppy, and I can't fix it properly, so I just put a doona over it because it looks a little bit sort of, hang on, which way does it go? It looks a little bit neater. But no, the rest of my study is so messy and junk roomed at the moment. I've really got to fix it up. But I thought the doona cover would be better.
Yeah. Wait. Okay, well, everyone can have my empty room for a minute. I'm just going to get a cable to connect my laptop.
Let's play what's in the background of Andrew's empty room again. I'm so curious about that portrait, the painting. I don't know who it is, whether it's maybe Mrs. Angry, or it's an art project from one of the kids, or an art project of one of the kids of Mrs. Angry. I don't know, but I'm always sort of drawn to that portrait in the background. And then I think is that a bird sort of in the green frame next to it? It's like a way kids draw a bird. And I can't tell. It looks like bags and boxes up onto the left side, which is probably the right side, which I can't figure out left and right on this thing. I get all twisted around. I don't know. What else? A sunflower picture. It's an interesting junk room. Mine's just pop culture bullshit. So my junk room consists of, let's see, there's my Jesus Saved Bowie, like Jareth, which I love, which was a gift from a friend. And there's my angel vamped doll. I've got a fan too. Look, there's my fan. And all my Babysitter Club books and Sweet Valley High down there. They're my collection. If anyone has any that they don't want, that they want to get rid of, because they're really hard to find in secondhand shops now, send them on. I'll probably double up, but I don't mind. I want the whole set. I think I've got about 80, and I think there's 100 all up of that particular set. I'm just talking about my collection of Sweet Valley High.
Nice.
My books, it's mainly the Sweet Valley High that I try and collect because I love them, and I don't care what anyone says. But they suddenly became really, I used to get them for like 50 cents at the St. Vinny's and stuff. And for some reason now, I'm guessing because people like me have grown up and they've all got money and retro-y and want to collect stuff, and they're really hard to find now. Even though they did a reprint of them, but I want the old original ones. Anyway, let's move on.
Yes. All right. I'm just gonna I'll give us a bit of, what's the deal with butt stuff?
What is the deal with butt stuff? People are so obsessed with butt stuff.
They are. And that's what we're going to talk about, because people are obsessed by it. So yes, I'm just going to say hi, Ian, Icy, and Big Pat Wrestling Days. We won't be interacting with the live chat as much as I would, because we're recording this for a podcast, which we're going to start now. And I will do the customary moment silence so I have an edit point. And then we're going to start our chat. Are we ready?
Yes.
Good. Okay. A moment silence. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us in this discussion. I have with me today the amazing Eva. Hello to you.
Hello, everybody.
And we are now going to have a bit of a chat about a topic some people obsess over a bit. And I wanted to come from the angle because you wrote a column recently about the myths. And we are talking about the anal sex.
Yes, butt stuff. I think, we started off in our sort of pre-chat talking about how obsessed people are with butt stuff. And I think one of the reasons people are so obsessed with it is because it is still quite taboo, and people are very taboo, like to get sort of obsessed with subjects that are quite taboo. And if you look through history, I think people were obsessed, over time with other things that are now sort of almost seen as stock standard sort of sexual stuff or whatever. I think people are obsessed with it because it's taboo, and there's the whole sort of, there's the whole weird association with gay sex and homophobia and all that, and we've talked about, the weirdness of men who don't want to wipe their butts because anything between the cheeks is gay and things like that, and that's a real thing. I mean, it is ridiculous and we laugh about it, but it is actually a real phenomenon of men that don't wipe their butts or clean their buttholes properly, or do anything to do with their butts, including very important things like prostate checks and doctor's visits, because they think anything in the butt is gay, and that the worst thing in the world to be would be gay. And it's weird, but that's a lot of the reason.
Yeah, it is. It's the combination of the fascination, right, on that. I mean, it's a little bit weird how mainstreamed anal got in the last 10 years. Because you look at porn as recently as the 90s, and there was always anal in it, but it was always like, yeah, we're the whole way here. And now it's like the first thing that happens in a goddamn porn.
Yeah, look, porn's got this sort of formula, which is, and we're talking mainstream porn here, and sort of, your basic package of porn that everybody sort of knows about, and that is sort of the first things that come up on your Pornhub searches and stuff. And the formula is, for heterosexual sex, it's penis in vagina sex, then it's blowjob, then it's anal sex, then it's blow on her face. There's very little oral sex on women that happens in these things, unless that's the actual scene or the main sort of theme of the video or shoot. But yeah, anal sex has definitely become a sort of stock standard routine in porn, and therefore it is now also becoming a sort of expected activity for people to do in their sort of early sex lives. We hear a lot about it, and I hear a lot about it from parents and from young people, and also the people that are very anti the things that I do, about the normalizing of anal sex. And personally, I mean, regardless of whether I'm a fan of anal sex or not, I'm not really. The normalizing of it, I think, is a good thing, because it is completely normal. It's as normal as any kind of sex. So I think this idea of normalizing is a bad thing is actually, I think, but it's also, but it shouldn't be standardized as this is how it should be. Like any kind of sex shouldn't be standardized, because everybody's different and has different wants and needs. But this idea that it's just part of regular sex can be quite confusing to a lot of people, because it's not necessarily, but it is completely normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's also that's a funny word, because it's hard to resist the impulse to say normal, unless you're saying like literally everything consensual is normal, because
well, and that's what I am saying, and I'm talking about a sort of a normal in the sense of it's not abnormal, it's not weird, it's not freaky, it doesn't make you, a freaky, kinky, weirdo, whatever. I mean, you might be, but that's not the reason. But normal in the sense of mathematical norms and averages and that sort of stuff, that's a little bit different. But no, yeah, I mean normal in the sense that it's not freaky.
You're not an aberration. You're not
Yeah.
some weird outcast deviant. I mean, unless that's your thing, you actually want people to see you as it. Some people proudly fly the deviant flag. So,
Oh, fly the freak flag if you've got it. Like that's
yeah.
but there's a difference in I guess the word normal and normalizing. I think that's sort of what we're trying to distinct.
Yeah, definitely. But I have to admit, definitely my favorite silly stereotype about anal is, but that's like gay, isn't it?
And it's funny though that men, like so many men who are into that whole sort of anal sex makes you gay, are quite happy to give anal sex but not receive it. And it's like, well, what's
Yeah.
the difference between a lady butt and a boy butt? If this whole thing of, there was a meme that went around a while ago, or a Twitter quote or something. I can't quite remember exactly the words of it, but I've used similar in my sort of experiences of when guys going on and on about sort of anal sex and they really, really want anal sex, and it's like, well, why not then just go and have sex with any butt if it's just about the butt sex, and it's not.
Yes.
It's an odd sort of an excuse that works when you want it to work for you and then doesn't seem to work on the other side, and it's a bit weird. Yeah.
But you get the guys who they won't perform anal on a woman because they think it's by definition gay. And it's like, oh, dude, there's a bit of uptightness there that I think you maybe need to talk through with.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's a big. Sorry, no, you go.
I'm just going to say we are, and this is going to throw in the standard thing I do when we're talking. Anyone listening back to this, apologise if there are occasional silences. We are using Australia's internet here, and
yes,
we
I've
can get
noticed there's a
suckers on
comment
the
saying
line.
there's a delay with me, so I look a bit like Japanese dubbed movie where they've kind of Daniel-san, that sort of thing. So sorry about that. That's I can see it sometimes as well, and it's confusing, which is why I keep skipping. I shouldn't be watching myself. It's like those hearing tests they used to give pilots, after the war to see if they'd had any kind of shell shock damage from stuff, where they put on a recording and you would have to speak through the microphone and it would give you an echo of your voice speaking. We used to do this at Questacon in Canberra when I was a kid, and we did science excursions, and you'd have to speak a tongue twister through an echo, and the easier it was for you to say the tongue twister meant the more damaged your hearing was. And after a while you get a way of working it out and how to speak over the echo, but the first few times you do it, it's really tricky, and so that's what I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah, there's an app. I was just looking on my phone. I had an app that basically did that to you. You wear headphones or earbuds or whatever, and you can change the delay. A short delay is easy to ignore, but you can do the delay a half a second to a second, and it's amazing how difficult it is to
Well, I'm
talk.
watching you now, and you're on a complete delay. Like your voice, your words, it's funny. Yeah. So sorry to everybody listening. That's what we're dealing with.
So if you're just listening to the podcast, hopefully there aren't too many total dropouts, and hopefully we don't get confused. Like, wait, I think you're still talking, but I can't. Oh no, look, you think? Oh.
Yeah.
Australia's internet, people. Australia's internet.
Welcome to the future.
Yes. Why don't we have flying cars or basic fucking internet that works? That's what I want to know. Oh dear.
Oh dear. Oh, we've got a New Yorker. Hello, New York. I love it when international people find us and talk to us. It's like, oh wow, we actually have reach. I know it's the whole globalization of the internet, but it's, I got a letter from a young woman in Denmark who had bought my book from, or her friend had a book of mine, and she got one, and it's just It's bizarre. I'm like, oh my God, Denmark, can they understand? Because the book is so full of both Aussieisms. I'm surprised other people, it hasn't been translated.
Yes, yeah. There's sometimes it's the idiom that's difficult rather than the language. I had one of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
videos. I had one of my videos where I was actually talking about communication difficulties and a bogan in a KFC abusing a Chinese granny for not having perfect English. And the bogan talked like, I'm going to briefly tell this story because it's bizarre. I was in the line and there's a little kid has dragged granny along to the KFC to Granny's English wasn't great, and but they go, I'm getting that one, I'm getting that one. And the bogan at the counter who's been showing exasperation with this person's broken English up to this point. Just when they say which, I want number five, she goes, upsizing. That's how she talked, and with no preamble, she just shouts at this man, upsizing. And she's saying, would you like to upsize your meal, which means a larger chips and a larger drink for an extra dollar? But she's just like in this granny's face going, upsizing. And granny's going, the fuck are you talking about? And I was about to
Uh,
lean forward and say, for God's sake, explain yourself. Just don't say those weird words through your nose. And it got through. But that got used in an English language school in Japan. Someone emailed me and said, can I do a transcript and do your class because you're talking about language and communication? I went, yeah, let's teach Japanese kids to tell people to fuck off, because that's what I was saying for most
yes.
of the video. So,
Oh my
all
goodness.
these Japanese kids have the latest catchphrase, shut the fuck up, that they say to people who don't speak English. But
I saw a great thing actually in I think it was in Japan as well, where they didn't realize that the word fuck was the word fuck and they thought it meant big or grand or something. So there was this department store that just had fucking sale and sale fuck all over the place because they thought it
yeah,
meant big or
yeah,
grande or something. And I thought
yes,
that
yeah,
I love language differences and things. There was a thing a while ago where people were talking about how in their second language, as English as a second language, they'd forget certain words for certain things, and so would kind of make a combination of words, like socks. They couldn't think of the words, they called them foot gloves, or and I've said there's some brilliant ones, and I just love them. I love the way that because the English language is fucking crazy and is really
oh
tricky to
yeah,
learn, and it's the hardest ones to learn. And so these countries that have these very intricate languages and intricate words, especially people like Japanese and Asian languages and Germans as well, have these amazing sort of words that mean a whole concept in one word. And so them trying to uh, translate a word in English that they don't have the word for, and so they're trying to. Oh, I find it brilliant. I love language. It's fascinating.
yeah, absolutely agree. Hey, look, Germans brings me back to butt sex because they're always
Yes,
into it.
hello.
No,
Nice
seriously, I
segue.
remember we were talking about earlier about different generations of porn, and back in the 80s and 90s, pre-internet, um, you get some big cultural differences, and German porn was always kinky. If you want the weird kinky stuff, you got the German porn. Like
Mm.
American porn followed a particular format. Uh, Japanese porn was also usually pretty weird. But yes, the Germans, I'm sure they have a compound word for that's a far more flamboyant than butt sex. It's
Yes. I find I remember I think we've talked about it on the show before, the discovery of and it doesn't really happen these days because magazines aren't a big thing and DVDs and movies aren't a big thing. It's a lot of online stuff. But the discovery of bush porn in my teen years, and bush porn is what we referred to as pornography we would find stashed under a bush or hidden in bushland. And in a place like Canberra, where I grew up, where every suburb is surrounded by reserve and bushland, you found bush porn everywhere. And my friend, actually a friend of mine and my now husband, so this is many years ago, found it was bin porn. Actually, it wasn't bush porn, but we used to refer to it as bush porn, bin porn at the local shops when we were about 13 or something, and it was German BDSM videos, and it was by today's standards, probably actually not that full on, but by the standards of the early 1990s, in our little kind of closed-in world of Canberra bubble, oh my goodness! All I remember is a gimp suit, a French-made suit, and lots of chains and whips. And we only ever really watched it in bits once, and then the guy who was my now husband's friend took it home, and I don't know what he did with it. I'm still friends with him on Facebook. I might ask him what happened to the weird German porn we found at the bin
Well, what
in the
happened to
bin
the
at
weird
good old
German
Katangara
porn?
shops in 1991. If you're listening, Pierce, what happened to that video?
Yes, back in the days when you
Yeah,
had to have
funny.
the physical media, and a lot of people couldn't safely keep it in the house. And this is usually um, teen boys or married men who felt like they couldn't keep
Yeah.
porn in the house, and they'd stash it somewhere.
Mm.
So,
I think in Britain they call it wood porn, or America they call it woods porn or wood
mm,
porn, because of the same thing. And we called it bush porn for years until bush kind of disappeared out of porn, and now when you're talking about bush porn, it's this kind of fetish of pubic hair from the 1970s or something, which is, it's weird that it's a fetish. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, these days when you refer to bush porn, you kind of have to, oh look, somebody see PBR Street Gangs actually written on the comments, hey, isn't bush porn about women with pubic hair? And that's what I'm saying, we had to change the sort
yeah,
of name of it after, or explain it. I found, bush porn is not porn about bush. So yeah, but
yeah,
I think I've written an article ages ago about bush porn as
yeah,
well, and it's
yeah.
a shame you can't find it stashed in the parks anymore. I mean, come on, poor,
Yes.
these kids these days, they have to search the internet and Pornhub. Oh my gosh, we just had to go to the park and look under a tree.
Yeah, there's a bit of
Oh
mystique
dear.
that's definitely been lost. I was going to say exactly the same thing about bush porn. You'll get a different thing if you search for that now.
Yeah.
But
Yes. But
and
because
I
we're
think,
in Australia, bush is our word for the
yeah,
bush. We don't call it the forest or the woods, or
yeah,
and it's not outback porn. It's bush porn, because the outback
yeah,
is completely different. That's out beyond the black stump, or
yeah,
out the back of whoop whoop. Like, outback is very different to the bush. So
yes,
there's a lesson in Australian landscape vernacular.
yeah. The bush is just outside of a big city. The outback is way to hell away from everywhere. It's basically desert usually.
Yes. Yes.
I know you said it was a different
Yeah.
topic, but I think it would be a fun thing to talk about for a while. How goddamn weird is it that pubic hair is treated like a fetish now? The actual
Yes, I
natural
think we should
state.
do something on that. I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting, and and you know what? It's actually coming. Yeah, pubic hair is coming back, but there's a
Mm,
bit of a sort of, it's partly because young women now are just like, what the fuck? I'm not altering my body for anything. It actually
mm,
does nothing if I, aesthetically, whatever. I don't want to either look like a prepubescent person, or
mm,
I don't want to, it's a lot of work to shave, wax, hair,
mm,
de-hair
mm, mm, mm,
bits, and for a lot of people it's just not worth it. And there
mm,
are also a lot of real benefits of
mm.
pubic hair, like health benefits and hygiene benefits. So it's one of these things that I think a lot of young women are starting to realize that, if a man or a person is not willing to go down there because there's hair, then they're probably not mature enough to be near a vagina in the first place, and they can fuck off. Um, I I'm all for neatening in a sense, for everyone. It's not just vulvas, and not just pubic hair. I think neat hair, your eyebrows should be neat, whether they're bushy, whether they're thin, whether just have them a bit neater. I just think a bit of a brushed beard, brushed hair, um, you know, but not hairless. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be hairless, but I think being groomed and neat is quite nice. But that's
Yes.
just
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Trim
I
the
don't care either
hedges.
way.
Don't.
If somebody likes me enough to take their pants off, I don't care what's in there. It's
Yeah.
like, yay, woohoo, I got in their pants. Like, and I think that, a lot of people are realizing that the whole woohoo of somebody wanting to get in your pants is enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Trim the hedge. You don't have to uproot the hedge. It's
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Someone's commented in the comments about ingrown hairs, and they can be some of the most painful and
mm,
unaesthetically. I would rather look at a full bush than all those white pussy little pimples that can, look and feel for the person who has them, just so uncomfortable. Oh, and they can get infected, and they can go big blacky grey lumps of ingrown. Oh gosh, just leave it. Just
It's a
leave your damn
fun
bush.
concept.
It's fine.
I'm just having Sex in the City flashbacks with some of the things we're talking about, like when they did the whole waxing
Well, and
episode.
that's, Sex and the City really did change. I mean, it's a shit show, and I hate it, and I didn't like it at the time, and I've tried to rewatch it as a mature adult who works within sex and all that, and taking into consideration the time it was made and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's still it's a bit crap. But they did change the Brazilian episode and the rabbit episode changed the way that women played with their bits, including, the Brazilian episode where they've never heard of them before, and they go and get one thinking it's just a bikini wax. And the look on their faces when that strip goes all the way up and they realise they have been left completely bald.
Yes.
I've had a Brazilian once. And never again. I had it just because I wanted to see. I've always sort of trimmed a bit, and I've shaved at times. And when I was an escort, I would wax. I've always left the strip, but I went all off once. It looked, like baby mole rats, or like like it just. No, it really. I just think. It needed a little bit of definition and a little bit of a bit of a frame.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, back to anal.
Well, again, tied back to our previous conversation, I also remembered there was a Sex and the City episode where the redhead, who was the redhead, Miranda? Some guy's trying to get her to talk dirty, and she feels really weird. She's never done it, but she gets into it. She's going like, "You're a bad boy," and he gets, "Yeah, say more like that." I was like, "Oh yeah, you really like it when I suck your dick, yeah, baby. That's the sort of hot talk, yeah." And it really drives you wild when I stick my finger up your butt. And he goes, "What? No, it doesn't." Just like every guy gets super homophobic because she's just going through, well, what have we done that he enjoyed? So while I was giving him a blowjob, I stuck my finger up his butt and he really got into it. But she says, "You love it when I stick my finger up your butt." And he's like, "What? What? No, I don't. No, I don't." So I'm not.
It's this weird sort of offshoot of this, it's part of that sort of umbrella of toxic masculinity and the idea that, and it stems from this idea of anything feminine is bad and weak, and men who sleep with other men are obviously feminine in some way, which is, there's a stand-up comedian, it might be Steve Hughes, it's somebody who goes on about how unfeminine and effeminate gay sex actually is, sticking a cock in an ass and it's so not feminine, and it's the most manly thing you can actually do. But yeah, and this sort of, it all stems to this weird sort of going back down to, misogynistic ideas that female or women are weak and weak is bad and bad is blah, blah, blah. But it's like this denial of their own pleasure and of their own body understanding is so sad. It actually, as much as I want to laugh at it and everything, and a lot of the times I want to ridicule it because I think it's, for so many of the men that feel this way, I actually pity or feel sorry for the way they feel it, because they don't know any better, and they probably wouldn't if they'd been just raised slightly differently or been given access to slightly different media or different knowledge about sex education and sexual pleasure and their bodies, as well as gay and lesbian relationships being completely normal and nothing, weird or freaky or anything and like that. They would be so much happier. And I do feel a sense of pity and loss for their sort of lack of knowledge and education about themselves and their own pleasure. I think it's sad.
Yeah, and it just, that weird thing that any sort of physical, sexual, intimate attraction to men is inherently bad. It's like the whole thing, like, oh, if I do this with a woman, it's okay. Like, by definition.
Oh, I've lost you.
If some, oh, okay. Well, we'll keep trying and see if you can hear me, because I can hear you fine.
I can hear you now.
But okay, we're back.
Okay,
so
good.
No, I was just saying that whole homophobic thing is pinning on any sort of physical, sexual interaction to men is inherently bad. And it's like, dude, you either are or you aren't. And if there is something there, please get emotionally healthy enough to just be able to deal with it rather than freaking the fuck out over it. And if you don't have any intimate attraction. You performing anal on a woman, or having a woman stick a finger up a butt, or going to town with a strap on, it's not gay if a sexual attraction to men isn't part of it.
Well,
And
that's
some guys
exactly
will.
right. I mean, the gay and or straight or bi, it actually has nothing to do with the physical. Like it doesn't. It's the attraction and the chemistry and the mate and the who you are attracted to. So the physical actually has, you know, there are straight people who don't have vaginal sex for reasons,
Yes.
and there are gay people who don't have anal sex for reasons, and the physical activity doesn't denote the sexuality, and that's, it's such a shame that we've sort of sectioned sex into, if you do sex this way then you are this kind of person, and if you do sex this way you are this kind of person, where everybody's doing sex in their own way and they are the kind of person that they identify as. No one else can put a label on you. You are the only person.
Yeah.
And, you know, as much as I don't love labels, I love other people giving themselves labels. That makes things easier for me and it makes things easier for them in a lot of ways. If you don't want to be labeled, you know, gay, bi, whatever, that's okay. But if you do, or you want to have those sort of, you know, it can help people. And so I think it's fascinating that people have taken this kind of certain physical acts mean that you are one type of person or another. Yeah, it's weird, but sex is weird. People have got so much misinformation and so much shame and taboo surrounding it that it's not surprising that everybody has these weird, odd ideas that don't quite conform to others' ideas and that don't really make sense in the great scheme of what sex and sexual attraction is, because they're two different things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is like, God, wouldn't it be a fantastic world where, I think for us to get less hung up about sex, one of the big hurdles is to get less homophobia happening, because I feel like so much springs from that.
Yeah, homophobia and misogyny, I think, are the two biggest things that fuck up our sex lives and our sex education system and the sex we're having and all of the things, all of the medical and reproductive and all of the things that come along with that, and other health things. You know, I mean, just you know, just off the top of my head, the ban on gay men who are having sexual relationships with other men, banned for giving blood for 12 months. If you're a gay man and you're celibate for 12 months, you can give blood. But if you're a gay man, even if you've been in a long-term relationship with one person for 20 years, you are ineligible to give blood. And that's the same for sex workers as well. And I find the laws ridiculous and very they're bigoted, and they don't quite reflect, also, especially the laws against sex workers, it's a whole other discussion, don't reflect the actual statistical sort of. Are you scratching your back with a back scratcher?
I have a back scratcher.
Oh my God, I need to go and buy one. What was I saying? Yeah, the statistics don't match up to their reasoning.
Yeah.
Them saying, you know, talking about risk assessment and the risk of sex workers giving blood, and the actual statistics show that sex workers have a lower instance of any kind of blood-borne disease or STI than any other demographic on the planet, except for celibate, non-sexual people. Yeah, so when they talk about health and safety, I don't believe that that's the reasons, because I know for a fact that they're steeped in misogynistic, patriarchal bullshit, and that's the same as all stuff to do with gay stuff as well. And tangent. Hello.
It's falling into stereotypes, and as long as those stereotypes exist, people in the position to influence policy feel using the bigotry as the basis for policy. And because we don't talk about it, like, you know, if you try and talk in open society about, I get that you're stigmatizing sex workers because you've got this really ill-informed, outdated idea of what it means, but the actual realities, and people will freak out if you just try to have an open conversation about how your stereotype, your prejudice actually doesn't match up to reality.
Yeah,
and the thing with
I'm just
gay
looking
men,
at one of the comments that's just been written on our live stream here about how in America in certain states there are anti-sodomy laws that help, which mean that a gay person could effectively call the police on their ex and have them arrested for sodomy. I just think Australia's had similar laws over the years that have since, I think Tasmania was the last that kind of quashed those laws, and they it's just gross. It's just just it's an anti-sodomy laws. I'm like, it's 2019, like, and we still have problems, in we can't help sort of men or women who have been raped, because there are all these weird sort of loopholes there, and yet consensual gay sex or anal sex is is deemed to be, you can get someone arrested in jail for it. And I just, I fucking hate this
think you'd
planet
be.
sometimes. I really do. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I do think that you'd be very hard pressed to get a cop who'd actually take action, even though those laws are on the books. But what this is
Well,
funny, and I
yeah,
found
but
out
then
because there
when
was a
you
big.
do,
There was a big thing in Texas a couple of years ago where people were trying to get the anti-sodomy statutes removed. And what I didn't realize is the way the laws are set up. And this, I think, was everywhere in the US that had anti-sodomy laws. Sodomy is not sexual activity between gay men. It was any penetrative sex that wasn't penis in vagina. So oral sex with a woman or anal sex with a woman was sodomy, and technically you could face criminal charges for that heterosexual activity, and which really highlights how fucking stupid the laws are.
yeah, and inconsistent, because they would be very inconsistently policed and prosecuted as well. It's just, I don't know. I get so sad sometimes and just so overwhelmed with just with the bullshit, and it's everything. I mean, it's not just one section of the world that's in dire straits at the moment. There is so much of it. And so, yeah, which is why I've pretty much spent the weekend stoned on the couch watching Adventure Time. And, just going, you know what, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline, they can make the world a better place.
I
We're
did
not
like
doing it.
the Steven universe. It's like stealth opening kids' minds to
I
fluidity
love
of gender.
Steven Universe. We actually watched a bit of that yesterday. We watched the movie and then realised that, well, we hadn't watched enough of the series to really, we're like, oh, so that must have happened in the series. Oh, we didn't see that. So we're watching the movie. But I love Steven Universe. It is the queerest pro queer rights amazing show ever. And yet quite subtly so. Like, you unless you kind of know the politics behind the people who wrote it, and the Rebecca, what's her name? The person that created Steven Universe. Amazing. Anyway, just this incredible show. And Adventure Time is very similar. It's not as, I mean, when I say Steven Universe is subtle, it's not as subtle as, say, something like Adventure Time, which is even more subtly queer, but it's just wonderful. And I love that these are the shows that my daughter watches and enjoys.
Yeah, I mean, I saw but I thought it was hilarious. It's like, a suit from Cartoon Network comes in and goes, "Hey, we've had some letters from parents that say your show's too gay. We can't really have that." And she's, "What? They're androgynous space rocks. It's not sex. It's not sex. It's got nothing to do with being gay. It's just about the elements and the bonding. I don't know what you're worried about." And then, okay, but it better not get gay. And he walks out. She turns to the animators and goes, "Make it gayer."
Yes, it's so good. I think the characters are great. It's very simple as well, which is what I think I like about it. It's not complicated or over sort of stated at all. It's just the concepts of the gems and their sort of pairings and their love for little old Stephen. I think it's just wonderful.
Yeah, and actually, on a lot of the good adult-oriented ones. Have you? We've talked about Big Mouth, I'm
Oh, Big
sure, the
Mouth
one
is
on Netflix.
brilliant, and I still need to catch. I haven't even finished the old Big Mouth. Sorry, not Bigfoot, Big Mouth. And they've just
Mm,
started the new series, but it is.
yeah.
I want it shown in schools, and they never would because of the
Oh,
language used. But
yeah.
it literally should be shown to every grade 7 child going who is
Mm,
about to start their journey into puberty, high school, and everything that entails, because it is
mm,
so close to home, and it could,
mm,
it is, yeah, it's pretty offensive at times in some ways, but not in the ways that
mm,
you'd think. I don't know. It's not
mm.
offensive. I don't know. It's brilliant. It is so cleverly
Yeah,
done, and it is such a great sort of insight into the
yeah.
teenage
Mm.
pubescent brain. Yeah.
4 episodes of the new season, and they've already sexualizing young teen girls based on what they wear, and in other words, where there's a whole song and dance routine about the spectrum of sexuality. uh, and it's absolutely brilliant because like one of the young characters is coming to terms with the fact he's bisexual, and he's like super aggressive. None of them are having sex with other humans because they're all only meant to be about 30. They won't stop masturbating and like fucking his pillows and stuff. And so it's like,
Oh yes,
as a,
yes, right. The pillow. Oh my god, I remember the pillow. Yes.
yeah. So he has a male and a female pillow now that he jacked off into, but it's just wild. And I think it was at the end of the first season, the last episode of the first season, where the two young boys who are kind of the central characters are saying like, "Do you think someone would ever tell our story?" And the other one goes, "I don't think so. It'd come across as child porn." And the other one goes, "Yeah, maybe you could do it animated and get away with it."
Yes, and it's true because teenagers are extremely horny and extremely sexual, even when they don't realize or know what's really happening, which is part of puberty and part of the body
Mm,
changing and your chemical stuff running through your brain and your bits
mm,
changing and filling with blood at
mm,
random times, and not sort of, you know, um, uh, really kind of getting what's going on. And if you did sort of, and a lot of the times, and I think it's a very interesting balance of talking about children's or young teens' sex and sexuality without it coming off as child porn. I mean, I think, a good balance of something that people my age might find would be something like the Judy Blume books that were sort of,
mm,
especially the sex-based ones. They were sex-based. Some of them were a little bit erotic in a sense, and they were about teenagers, but they were written for teenagers, which I think is a bit different, whereas Big Mouth is written for adults, but they still managed to do it quite successfully.
mm,
And it is a bit different. It is a bit tricky to sort of, to not Lolita a story of young coming of age sexual awakening and sex.
mm.
It can be tricky. It would be a balance. And I think the main thing would be the audience. And the way
Yes.
it's done. So Judy Blume is aimed towards teens, and the language is very much teen language. Big Mouth is, I think, it's because it's telling our story, us as adults watching back the
Mm,
story of our awakenings. I think it gets away with it because that's the way it's, and also the fact that it's animation. You couldn't show a lot of that stuff with real people just because you couldn't, even if it wasn't about kids, you couldn't show it.
yes.
And then you've got these fantastic, the Hormone Monster and the Hormone Monstrous, which are sort of the corporeal versions of the rushing hormones that go through us all at that age. And they're done very well and very cleverly. So I think that's how that would be, because it's not done erotically, and I think that's probably the
Mm,
difference as well. It's done almost educationally and humorously, but it's all
yeah.
very real. It's not that,
Mm,
as much as they're taking the piss and making a bit of a
mm,
joke about it, boys fuck their pillows, girls bleed
yeah.
through their pants, girls are rated sexually on what they wear. Everything is very, very real, and it's done in a way that is highlights, to us, I think, as adults, holy fuck, this is exactly what we went through. If only we'd known this back then, we'd probably have had a slightly better time going through it, or at least a less confusing time. Probably not a better time, because the chemical rushes can't be fixed regardless. You feel gross anyway. But the mental side of things, I think, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I feel like the adults who write the script, they've just gone, we need to be as honest as possible about how fucked up it was. Think of all your worst memories, all the most embarrassing and shameful things that you went through, that you felt, and let's just do them as honestly as possible.
And
yeah, I love
they're universal. And that's the other thing, is that as much as each experience is individual to the person, it's a universal experience, that puberty and coming of age. And I think, and that's something I write about actually in my book, to just sort of, I suppose, give a bit of a plug to the book. But there's a whole section in that about the fact that you don't know what anyone else is going through, but trust me, they're all going through something. It doesn't matter if they look like they are the most beautiful, popular, with it girl in the school, or the confident jock that's getting all the football tries, or I don't know football language, I think that's a word. It doesn't, all the weirdest, freakiest, or a loner that sits on their own in the school library every day. Like, every single one of those people is having an issue with their body at some point in that time, in some way. They love it, they hate it, they don't understand it. It's too big, it's too small, it's too loud, it's too smelly, it's too messy, it's too this, it's too that. Everybody. And so there's some comfort in that, but there's no comfort in it at the moment. There's comfort in it afterwards. And I think that's something that Big Mouth does, is give us that comfort of, oh, we all went through it, and now I know my kids are going through it, and we can hopefully just hold their hand through it, because you can't fix it, really. I mean, puberty and that sort of stuff. But you can sort of say, look, there is a light, and we'll be waiting at the end of that tunnel for you to come through and navigate all that stuff. And we will answer the questions that you have through the navigation. But so much of it, the answers aren't the answers they want, or the questions aren't the ones they're really asking. And there's so much to do with it. But I think, the biggest disservice we can do to teenagers, I think, going through it, is to forget that we went through it, and to forget the full-on times that we had. It's parents that suddenly don't understand why their teenagers are hiding in their rooms and slamming doors and being disgusting and not eating properly. I mean, it's like, don't you remember? Like, it's not that long ago that we all went through it. So anyway. Yeah.
I think you've hit on something really interesting there, with a lot of the people who are basically seem to be very into repression, whether it's repression of young people or repression of adults who are outside whatever boundaries. When you hear them speak, so often I go, holy fuck, do you not remember? Do you not remember what you went through? Or are you an alien? Are you an alien that didn't have the same processes and the same bloody chemical explosions in your body that everyone, you just come across as you have absolutely walled off your teenage years, and you're pretending none of those feelings existed.
And I mean, you go back through history, there's a very famous, I think it's, I can't remember if it's Socrates quoting Plato or Plato quoting Socrates or whatever, but there's a quote about teenagers, and it basically says something like, teenagers are lazy and they have no respect for their elders, and they're always hiding away in their rooms, reading stuff, and they don't listen, and they don't, and teenagers are terrible. And that's fucking Plato saying that. Every generation thinks that the teenagers coming up behind them are the laziest, stupidest, uninformed, or too informed. Look at the way they speak about Greta and, what's his face, Hog from America, and all these things. They seem to sort of forget we were all idealized teenagers at one stage, and these people are actually doing actual thing. And gosh, we have covered so many bases today, and only minimally touched on anal sex. But yeah, I know. But yeah, I think I think it's weird that grown-ups, as we are, forget what it was like to be kids, and forget what the adults in our lives said about us as teenagers, and the things that were written about and said about us as the grunge generation in the 90s, or the mod generation in the 80s, or the hippie generation in the 60s and 70s. I mean, it's just we all go through it, and luckily some of us remember and are there to hold the hand of the teens coming up, and not to just ridicule and laugh and ignore their very real stuff they go through.
Yeah. So I think if you could decipher the oldest pictographic paintings on a cave wall somewhere in the world, it'd be some version of what the hell is with these kids today? And don't get
Get
me
off my
started on
lawn.
what they call music, They're just banging
Yes,
rocks together. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. It's so true though. And it's just, I don't know, it's this circular sort of thing that just, that we just go through every generation. And it's
It is.
crap.
And even the things that there are moral panics about, like we're talking about the stuff that's on the internet, and not altogether without reason with some of the stuff that's on the internet, but it's more, you can deal with it
Yeah.
more by being open than by repressing. But it's like video games, the internet, television, rock and roll,
Comic
comic
books. Yeah.
books, jazz music. Every generation has had something and go, this is it. This is what's going to destroy society. This is the end of the world. And it's like, and every time someone comes up with something, they think they're new. No, this is different. It's like, no, it isn't different. It's the same.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that sort of, I hate it. I don't know if we talked about on this or if it was on another podcast I was doing with somebody else, but that really smug, really condescending. I fucking hate it. And you go into a cafe and it says, no, we don't have free Wi-Fi. Talk to each other. Pretend it's the 90s. And I'm like, well, fuck that. If I'm going to pretend it's the 90s, then I'm going to pay $1 for my fucking coffee. I'm going to smoke inside, and I'm going to sit behind a book anyway. Like, it's so condescending. It's like, and then those photos of, look at all the teenagers these days just sitting on their phones, and then a picture of the 1920s with everyone just sitting there looking at their newspapers. And, there was a really great picture actually that went around a while ago of a bunch of teenagers. They're in it's the Louvre or the Museum of Modern Art or something, and they're all in the front foyer and they're all sitting around. It's a bunch of teenagers and they're all on their phones. And someone's written a caption, this is what's wrong with society today. These children, they're in the most amazing museum in the world and they're just sitting on their phones. And someone's commented, actually, which I quite like at that moment, this is the such and such museum, and they have an interactive app that once you've gone through the museum, there's a whole bunch of educational quizzes and tests and blah 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 that you can do and interactively look at the way that the paintings were restored, and that's what these kids are doing. They've been through the museum and now they're looking at, so fuck you. Technology actually has created an even more amazing experience at something like an art history museum, where you used to be able to just go and look at the paintings. Now you can look at the paintings, and then you can see the technique that the painter used and how the restorers who found it in an attic in the 60s restored it to its vibrant colors. And you can look at this, and you can do an interactive quiz and learn. And what did you learn about this artist today? And where did this painting, all these amazing things. But all you see is a kid on their phone, and you think, they must be just catching Pokemon or something. And who the fuck cares if they are catching Pokemon? For God's sake, let us have a bit of fun. Like, it just,
yeah. I know, it's
calm blue ocean.
That need to criticize is absolutely, and the variant on that, we don't have free Wi-Fi, is occasionally I see people complaining about people on trains. They've all just got their earphones in. You never talk to anyone on the train. I was like, do not talk to me, complete stranger, on
the train anyway.
Okay?
Nobody ever talked to each other on trains and buses before headphones anyway, and if they did, it was usually the creepy person shouting God stuff at you or whatever. Like, or it's just, or some sleazy guy, hey baby, where are you going such late night? Like, it's just, it's like, and the thing is, when somebody is staring at their phone, this idea of what, this perceived idea that this kid is just chatting to a friend, and even if they are, I can't see what the problem with that is. But there is a world on this little thing. There is everything. Like, you don't know what they're doing. They could be watching a how to make a bomb video, sure, but they could also be doing a live drone flight, watching the gazelles migrate in fucking Tanzania or whatever, if there are gazelles there. Like, you know, they everything. I can sit on my computer and I can watch a live Doors concert that was recorded in, you know, the 70s while reading fucking Shakespeare, while I've got Iron Man playing in a little box on the thing here, while I'm also writing an article on butt sex. Like, I can do all from one small little thing that's on my, you know. And yet, you know, the minute we see a child or a teenager looking at it, oh, they're wasting their life. I'm like, my God, my child does so much on her phone and her computer. And she and so much amazing like art and music stuff. And her and her friends do all this stuff. Gets great grades at school. And I think part of the amazing stuff that she has, because I don't have a lot of knowledge of a lot of the stuff that she's interested in, she's got from watching YouTube videos and reading stuff on the internet, and good on her. You know, leave kids alone.
Yeah, it's just that the repression is never going to work. It's like I could point out 500 things I don't like about the internet.
Yeah.
But you don't get it by improve things by repression. You improve it by actually having honest discourse. I mean, with a big asterisk, I'm definitely into deplatforming people who are nothing but hate speech and who are actually dangerous.
Yes.
But the idea that blow up the internet, well, you can't. So be productive with how you respond to it. Don't just say, "Oh, switch it off." Yeah, well, people aren't going to switch it off, are they? So be a bit more productive than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, this sort of, you know, because you're right. There's so much on the internet that I hate, and that makes me feel physically, you know, physically react to it in a way, whether it's anger or despair or, you know. But then there's also an equal amount of stuff that I react positively to, you know. I think, and it's what you seek out as well. And I think, you know, I've got my little pockets of the internet, you know. My Facebook is my little echo chamber. Everybody on my Facebook is somebody I know, somebody I like, and who will post and respond to things I like, and things that will, you know, and obviously there are things that they'll post, oh my God, this made me angry, and it makes me angry too. But the ideals and the attitudes and is stuff that I like, and it's my little echo chamber. Every other place I am on the internet, I don't filter, because I feel like I need, especially with the work that I do, and the fact that I'm raising a young person and all that, I feel like I need to be in tune and on the ball of what is happening in the world, including the stuff that makes me feel physically ill, whether it's Trump or the way we treat refugees or the environment or, you know, all these things. And I think, you know, and the people, you know, the white supremacists and the racists and the misogynists and the incels and all of those things, I very rarely block on my Twitter feed. I mute sometimes, or I don't look at sometimes. Are you back?
Okay. Yeah, we're having soup. Okay, we lost that. Unfortunately, that really spirited rant of yours, we basically
Damn it.
lost.
Oh, they're always spirited. I get too
passionate.
passionate.
That is true. We're pretty good spirits.
Basically what I was saying is Facebook is my little world bubble where everything is lovely. Twitter and the rest of the internet is an unmuted cesspool of hatred and despair, and I find it quite confronting, and every now and then I do have to turn it off and walk away so I don't get too, but I need to know. I think it's important to understand what's going on in the world, so I can effectively use my passion and my anger to fight for a good fight.
Absolutely. I mean, God, on Twitter, I wield the block button like, you know, just a scatter gun. It's like, no, you're gone. Not listening to you. Not listening to you. Not listening to you. It's just radiating with toxic people pushing toxic ideas, and it's just like, no, no, no. My world is not made better by any sort of interaction with you. Go to hell.
And that's why, and that's what I do with my Facebook. Whereas Twitter, I do sort of like, yeah, I'll mute a bit, and there are certain phrases, or not phrases, people or followers, people that I will not give the time of day to, like, what's his face, the pickup artist Roosh or whatever. I blocked him years ago because I just don't care, and I don't need to know because I know that sort of exists. But yeah, there are a few things that I keep on, especially the state of Australian politics. I follow that quite closely because it's quite close to my heart, and I'm very politically minded, and I spend a lot of time, I used to anyway, spend a lot of time working within politics and policies and campaigns and things like that. And I miss it, but I have not, since the Australian Sex Party disappeared, I have not found anyone that I think is worth my effort and my passion, because they're all horrible. They all suck. Anyway.
That's completely fair, I think. And hey, just as a tangent before we finish, because we've been going for about an hour, Australian politics. I don't know if you saw the latest with Scummo, our Prime Minister. Like, he's been over in the US sucking up to Trump something chronic.
Like he's had his dick permanently in, or his mouth permanently on Trump's dick the whole time he's been over there. It's just, it's obscene. I don't need to see that shit, man.
Yeah, but what two interesting things that I read about this week. Apparently, Scummo wanted his pastor, his spiritual advisor, the piece of shit from the Hillsong Happy Clapping Evangelical Church, wanted him invited to a White House dinner, and Trump's people vetted him and went, oh wait, he's under police investigation for how he handled his father's sexual abuse of children in the congregation. Fuck no. When Trump's people go, no, you're too fucked up, we're not having you here.
Yeah. And then when asked about it, when asked if he actually wanted to do it, all Scummo's fucking response was, oh, it's just gossip. And someone's like, yes, but is it true? Yeah, no, it's gossip. Yes, but is it true or not? No, it's just, he's almost worse than Trump in a way, because he's calculatingly, Trump's just stupid, I think. And I don't think Trump is smart enough to be calculating. And that's part of the problem, is he's not calculating. He just says whatever. Whereas ScoMo is very much an evil, calculating.
Well, the other weird and interesting thing I read about him this week, there is an absolutely absurd, deranged, out in orbit somewhere past Pluto conspiracy theory known as QAnon on the internet.
Yes.
And it's whatever conspiracy theory you've ever heard. If you've never heard of QAnon, QAnon's weirder. It can be summarized as Donald Trump is the secret hero who will uncover the demonic nest of satanic child sexual abuse rings that's everyone in the Democratic Party and everyone in Hollywood. Basically, anyone who's ever spoken against Trump is a child molester, and Trump will come out and expose it. And it's obviously deranged, and it's obviously not real. But probably the highest profile person in Australia who's part of the QAnon ridiculous conspiracy gossip, his wife is Scummo's wife, best friend, and this guy, who's a mad deranged QAnon conspiracy person, socializes with Scummo all the fucking time. So he's going to be, I didn't either. I just learned that this week. So that's
really,
how
though,
weird.
can I just say, the only thing anyone overseas needs to know about our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, and really please repeat this at every moment that you can, is that our esteemed Prime Minister shat his pants at the Engadine McDonald's after a ball game. Was it a grand final?
Yes. No, they got knocked out in a preliminary final, if I remember. Right. He supported his local team, the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, and they got knocked out in the final, and he got shit-faced drunk at a thing, and it is the best silly rumor about a politician ever.
And I cannot wait. I cannot wait for the one day when, most likely it'll be a chaser, but it might just be somebody just over it all who will ask ScoMo at a press conference whether or not it is true that he shat his pants at Engadine McDonald's, or not even ask whether or not it's true, but just ask whether he, paid for the cleaning bill of the Engadine McDonald's or not, because I think it is the best. One of my very good friends actually wrote an amazing poem. It's this epic kind of ballad.
Okay, we're going to have another huge technical hitch here.
Oh,
I think we're back from it
we're
now,
back. Well, I
though.
was just saying about my friend who wrote, Michael, who wrote an epic, amazing, and he's performed it live, poem about the shitting of pants at Engadine Macca's. And I will find a copy of it and I'll get Andrew to post it somewhere, whether it's on the
That's
or
good.
on our thing or something. It's wonderful. In Oh Fair Engadine, where we set our tail,
Yeah.
it's that sort of thing. It's beautiful. But yeah, that's
Mm.
all you need to know about our Prime Minister. He shat his
Yep.
pants at Mac.
And that's going to follow him forever. That's just the best, silly, bizarre
Yeah.
rumor. It's just going to follow him forever.
It's kind of similar to the, getting spanked on the butt with the magazine with your own picture on it of Trump's kind of little rumors that went around. It's sort of, similar in that kind of whether or not it's true. It's highly, it's just, I'm sure every time he sees the word Engadine now, Scott Morrison gets a little rumble in his tummy. Everybody needs to go to the toilet.
Yeah. Yep. I think that is a fabulous place to finish. Just that. That's the epitome of Australian politics. That's it. And also because we keep getting the technical difficulties now, so we'll go on. And the final sort of plug the things. Eva has a book.
Oh,
Tell us
yes. Yeah,
about the book
hang on. It's
before
right
we
near
go.
I have one on The Teen Girl's Guide to Getting Off. It's sex education that you need and you will never get in school. It's everything: pleasure, consent, all the good stuff that you should know. Boys,
And we
girls,
keep
mums,
having the
dads,
technical problems.
cis, trans, everyone.
And yeah, you search on Facebook for more information about that. You'll find the Teen Girls Guide to Getting Off there. And yes, Eva is on Twitter as Deliciously Bad as well. And I am unsurprisingly on those platforms as Angry Aussie, which can be found fairly easily. And hope that you join us again, both on the YouTubes and on the podcast worlds, and say hello to us on the social medias.
Do
And
that.
we'll say bye for now. Thanks for tuning in. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Kevin. See ya.
All right, that's where we'll cut out the podcast. But yes, we will. Thank you everyone for being
I'm
in the
so
live
sweaty.
stream. Sorry.
I'm so sweaty. It's just gross up here today.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know. It's just, I think it's coming up to about 30
Right.
degrees according to my phone, and I'm in a closed room, and it's very sweaty. I would keep looking at myself to see if I could see beads of sweat on
Okay.
my.
This is just yeah. Okay. We'll leave on the sweaty thing because it keeps
Yeah.
breaking up anyway. So thanks everyone for being in the live stream.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you again another time.
Next
Bye
weekend.
for now.
Bye.
Hope next weekend. Bye. I gotta click the end broadcast. This takes longer to end than